Welcome to Rooted to Thrive, conversations to elevate our humanity. I'm your host, Rochelle Peterson-Ansari, Professor P for short. This is your podcast sanctuary for cultivating mindsets and skills to elevate our shared humanity. We're taking a deep dive into practical strategies to evolve as anti-racist, culturally competent, and inclusive individuals and leaders. In each episode, we're bringing you real-world examples and actionable takeaways. We're going to talk about personal growth, fostering connection, and creating positive change that dismantles systemic barriers and creates environments where all of us are valued, empowered, and activate our collective power. This is Rooted to Thrive. Hi there. Welcome and welcome back to everyone joining us for Rooted to Thrive, conversations that elevate our humanity podcast. I'm your host, Rochelle Peterson-Ansari, aka Professor P. Now, today we have Dr. Carl Moore, founder and CEO of the Youniversal Love Unlimited. He's nationally recognized learning scientist, expert in personal leadership and spiritual development. And Carl also has a long career in student success, right, as an expert. He also has his own podcast for the Youniversal Love Movement. Now, Carl and I have known each other for a long time. We
Yeah,
connected, yeah,
go back.
right? We connected when I believe when we both were in multicultural affairs at
Yeah,
university.
doing that work in Philly, Temple.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Mhm.
But Carl has also been a wonderful friend. I actually look to him when I need to be reminded that there's more light in the world than there's darkness. So yes, Carl, I am so honored to have you joining me today to just share some of that light. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Peace, love, and light to you, my sister
Oh yeah.
Rochelle. Yeah, I've been doing really great. It's really great to be connected because that I remember the light that you came with when we first met way back when, and it was just it's always good to be in resonance and in connection. So thanks for having me here today.
Oh, it is my pleasure. So I'm excited to have you speak about self-directed leadership. I can't wait to get into it. It sounds juicy. So well, look, just to get started, let's tell us a little bit about what self-directed leadership means and how that elevates our humanity.
Oh man, this is a wonderful fastball for me that you're throwing here. So, so I really I feel like my entire leadership journey has come towards being able to have like a platform, stage experience, other thought partners to be able to promote this idea of self-directed leadership. And in essence, what it is, there's so many types of I can be, you can be a transformational leader, all those different types of leadership and different styles and philosophies, et cetera. But one of the underlying themes has been the entire time for me is always this like that finger pointing back at yourself type of thing, right? Even from when I was a little kid, second youngest to six, six children, and my little sister, she would be the other one younger than me. It's like, mom, she did this, this, and that, but what did you do?
Ah,
And I'm like,
yeah.
goodness, I can't. Come on, give me a break here. Like, come on, in school, blah 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 blah. But what did you do, Carl? I'm like,
Mm.
shucks. So then going up and being ascending in leadership in higher education, but then even outside of higher ed now, and having received executive coaching and coaching others from the spiritual development space to the actual corporate space, right? All of that. It's always this. Okay, so what are you doing to get in or get out of your own way as it relates to some of the ways that you are moving towards your outcomes, right? How do you get out of your own way or how do you get in your own in service of that? So self-directed leadership at its core is really just understanding how we are at minimum co-creators, co-creators of the spaces
Mm,
that we are in, and taking that accountability. It's like how, and for me, what we do at Universal Love Unlimited, and what I promote is that we have at minimum, we have ultimate right and control over our bodies, right? Our minds and our spirit. And by spirit, I mean more so connection to your purpose, connection to others, and connection to yourself, because everyone may not have like some type of a framework or religion or spiritual practice. And that. So it's very transferable to a wide range of individuals. So self-directed leadership is really about being able to promote those healthy outcomes for yourself and for others, because you have to, you know how they say, yeah, if you don't, you can't love others till you love yourself, or all those things. So that's what I would say. It just, I mean, there's so much more, but I'm going to stop there and see if there are any questions about that, that
okay.
part.
No, that makes a whole lot of sense. And excuse me, I'm going to ask you, you started talking a little bit about your background, right? So I'd like for you to share a little bit about your background, how you became involved in this work, and we'll dig a little deeper into how this elevates our humanity.
Yeah, thank you. And oh my God, goodness. So you asked how does it elevate humanity, and I'll connect that to this as well. I think that, they say each one teach ones, or, be the change you want to see in the world. The elevation of humanity is that when we the more people who are accountable, regardless of what's happening in their environment, the outside, the more everyone can be like even a source of light, and that can catch fire as we hold systems and structures and things like that accountable, which is great. But I would, if we snapped our fingers tomorrow, if some of these systems and structures change and we still are acting like like we're acting, I'm like, oh goodness, So definitely do your thing in terms of that, and that's certain. Everyone's energy signature is different. Some
Yeah.
people have that as a part of that's what they're doing. But not many of us, not enough of us have in the past, I guess I would say, walk the walk. So the the ways in which, and the question right now, can you repeat that? I want to make sure, because I had a segue into that question.
Your about your background and how you
Yeah, my
became
background. So
involved.
my background actually started off doing working with the National Coalition Building Institute. That's my first time doing like trainings for others. And I was an undergrad at Kutztown University, state school in Pennsylvania. And we used to do this work on prejudice reduction. And we would say guilt is the glue that holds oppression in place. And we would work across difference and do a lot of like healing work around race, social class difference. And when I was doing that, I would see that there was a lot of power in the being and sitting with people and understanding and sharing stories and really connecting, more of the listening and facilitating than the telling. So
Yes.
then when I went to Ohio State and I was studying educational policy and leadership and learning about, I was so excited. They have this thing called Leadership Lab where we learned about Myers-Briggs and typologies and archetypes. And I took the deep, deep in where I learned about Carl Jung and the archetypes and some of the elements that's connected to that gets into like a little esoteric. But for me, learning about that, and I started using like SDS, self-directed search, and all these other pieces for my trio students later. It was really the journey of and then in my time as learning about the brain and how it works, or how to put together um learning experiences that stimulate um upskilling or competency development or acquisition of, or being able to do things along that whole entire way. It's always been this empowering of individuals. And I think the biggest thing that we have, whether it's leadership spaces or even in a classroom, is you have these things that are sometimes like labels that people put on people. And those labels become heavy weights that really hold people back
Mm,
from viewing others, viewing themselves in a way that's more expansive and lighter. Those
mm,
labels
mm,
are what they originally were supposed to be okay, right? Even the label of like minority when I was an undergrad, it never settled right with me. I'm like, how am
mm.
I minor when like a global population is colored or something, the heart.
Right.
But then these things become well-meaning and sometimes categories that still hold you back. So my journey in terms of the social justice, the kind of even using something like Myers-Briggs or StrengthsFinder, I'm a certified StrengthsFinder coach now, to learning paradigms and ways, using them as like lenses versus like labels,
Mm,
really helped me in terms of when working with people, give more questions, or provide or facilitate more of a discovery of themselves. Or when I'm working with a supervisor or a team, it's like, how do you expand your curiosity and the ways in which you can look at these folks, only in so much as that you can, of course, if your outcomes driven, fine. But sometimes it's not even about the outcome when you open up your mind. You're like, wait, the outcome was that I'm supposed to be here and present and
mm,
with no outcome. So in terms of helping humanity, I think that that's what we really need. And I feel like I've gone through a lot of painful times, and post-traumatic stress is what they talk about, but post-traumatic growth is what I would kind of pin all of my stuff to. It's like, yeah, it was a lot organizationally, dealing with folks in my own regular social lived experiences. And then it really kind of, made it where it's like, okay, y'all creating a monster now because I'm gonna y'all thought I loved people before, but you're gonna really receive it in a way that's fortified and have the science, the research, the all of these layers, where
mm,
it's no longer a, oh, you're just being nice, or you're just trying to love people. I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm loving people, but this is the highest vibrational way to live in certain instances. And if you want what you want, you would want to operate with more capacity, more access to your brain, higher vibration, a wider cone, to let blessings come in, and less of that kind of constricted piece. So there's all types of ways that I feel blessed to communicate, or fortunate to be able to communicate for the, even if you're an atheist, it
mhm.
still don't mean that you love, because we're talking about science at the end of the day. And if you're not, and if you love something else, then it's could become a foolproof way, if we were, because we're human. So we're all green, living in green world.
Mhm.
We are looking at ways to make humanity a better place by ways in which we interact with ourselves and others. So that's something I think nobody can walk out the room and say that doesn't apply to me. So I've
Exactly.
I've been in those workshops. Haven't you been in, Rochelle, where those
Yes.
times where people, you can feel the energy, you're like, oh
Mhm.
no, this is not me, or oh, you're talking about the colored people now. Oh, okay, like no, just, and that's, and being a African American male and feeling the energy, being an empath. I've been fortified to be able to put more tools in my toolkit. That's
Right.
what I loved about Myers-Briggs and StrengthsFinder. I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, I'm going to talk to y'all about love through valuing of difference in archetype,
Yes.
or
Yes.
talent, whatever. So I don't
Yes.
want to go too long-winded, but yeah.
Yeah, no problem. I've talked about this in different spaces and written about it, but this thought about difference, right? And
Hmm, hmm.
what's baked into so many cultures is that difference is not valuable, right? We devalue difference,
Devalue.
right? Instead of seeing the value add because of our difference or uniqueness, if you will. And that's what I hear you. What's resonating for me is that the self-directed leadership is is encouraging us, urging us to look at self, make changes or adjustments, whatever is needed, that and when it serves us well, it actually will serve others well. And that's your uniqueness. That's valuable, right? Okay. I know you clapping your hands, and for the people just listening, he's clapping his hands.
Right. Well, I mean, that is so amazing. I had to give that as proper pause. That's it. You
Yeah.
said it perfectly. And if we drill down even more so, I've been in, and to talk a little bit about my specific motto for this,
Mhm.
and the motto is not anything, nothing's new under the sun, as we all know, but it's exactly positioned how it should be. I've seen so many leaders lead and they have negative health outcomes or
Yes.
adverse because of the environments.
Mhm.
So all of what you just stated, in so much that it enhances your quality of life, right?
Mhm.
So there is like the self-directed element of when I started doing the research for it,
Mhm,
self-directed leadership, self-mastery, how do you work on yourself? And there's so much.
mhm,
A lot of that was dealing with the mind
mhm,
and being able to think about things differently and do things differently. And that's great. There's a
mhm.
large percentage of that. And I have a book that I'm writing. I have a newsletter on LinkedIn, which you could link to, or and I have a book that I'm writing around it, and it has that component. But
Yeah,
as I started to integrate what I learned through that and all of the other connected pieces, as I mentioned earlier, the actual that's the mind, the body, and the spirit. So I'll give you an example. If you're a leader, and let's say you're thinking proper thoughts or thoughts that are not getting in the way, and you're taking care of yourself and your body, you could still feel a little unfulfilled because there's no if you don't find purpose in that, right? If you don't find that kind of like something for the greater good or for your, a connection to yourself in that type of way. Usually, if your mind is in a healthy place and your body's in a healthy place, usually it lends itself to like, oh, let me think a little bit more, you know. But if your body and your mind are not necessarily in a healthy place, it's definitely not going to people. It's kind of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? You're thinking about taking care of your health, right?
right,
If you have if your health is not going so well, you're like, okay, or you're leaning more into spirit to try to help because your body's not, breaking down or what have you. So there's this there's this interplay in which the alignment between mind, body, and spirit, and having increased attention to how those impact how you show up for people, but before you show up for people, you show up for yourself. And that's
yes,
the part that we can drill deeper into as it relates to ways to think about, be about, experience mind, body, and spirit for oneself, and then be in experience or inner experience with other folks. So that part for me is so exciting to be able to learn from and facilitate the learning and draw from another person's genius because I'm like, put me anywhere on earth in front of anybody. Oh, how do you know you? I don't need to know. What do you mean? Because I don't need to. What I do know already is the human condition and human experience. And I know that through that person's lived experience and knowing with them that we can get to where it needs to be go in so much as they're willing. The
right,
transparency, sometimes the vulnerability isn't necessarily always there because it's not promoted. It's not a muscle in our culture, but seed planting will happen nonetheless, right?
right.
And or giving a person the ability to say, okay, you know how to plant seeds when it's time, so it becomes pretty beautiful in that regard with this whole entire self-directed leadership. If you can't change a person's mind, it's okay because you're not supposed to change people's mind. But the
Mhm.
goal is to be able to provide a space where they can come a little bit more into whoever their self is or more in alignment. You know, I grew up and my mother was an herbalist, and they used to talk about this thing called disease, as dis-ease,
Right.
right? So for me, because the natural state of things in my like kind of paradigm philosophical view is that things are to be in alignment. My
Mhm.
thing is always how to get folks in alignment
Right.
and asking them the questions that they don't need to read a book or anything. They just know by their kind of like internal.
Right.
Um, and it doesn't have to be like a spiritual thing. It's like, how do you feel? Okay, if you
Yes.
don't feel good, that's when somebody's making a decision as a leader. How do you feel about that? I feel good. Okay, but then after it happens, how do you feel? Whether it went right or wrong. When it went wrong, sometimes, or not wrong, when the outcome wasn't achieved, sometimes leaders like, I felt good beforehand and I still feel good now. I'm willing to sit with it. Okay, cool. A more alignment. Sometimes after the fact, it's like, well, I felt good before and now I don't feel good afterwards. I kind of regret. Okay, so what may have been out of alignment? And more reflections can come from after the fact, reflecting on that than ahead of time because we're wise, Rochelle. We be telling ourselves all types of things
Yes.
and convincing ourselves that we're right. And sometimes we
Mhm.
need that contrast. I don't even look at it as bad. Sometimes we need that contrasting moment to say, okay, maybe want to course correct next time. And you
Yeah.
can only learn through those contrasting moments,
Mhm.
So yeah.
Yes, yes, course correction. You're using all the words that I've
I
used
know I'm not trying to, I'm
recently.
not
It's
trying to be out here
weird.
using it.
You would not have known what I have written about, talked about. Um, in the most recent days. But
Oh, okay.
yeah, it's just that. So this is just a perfect time for us to have this conversation because I've talked about being on a journey of course correcting, as I've grown as a leader, as an educator, and you just use the terms. So that's all. That's all. No biggie.
Okay.
But I love when there's like I feel like it's confirmation when I hear something, more than one time. Actually, three times is a trick for me that I better pay attention to whatever that term or phrase is. Yeah. So
Oh, it's thematic.
yeah,
Okay, that's beautiful.
yes.
Yeah, yeah.
So, I mean, that's how, yeah. So, spiritually, that's how I choose some of my direction, like
That's
my next
beautiful.
best step.
When you start to notice the patterns.
Right. When
Hmm.
there's some things that, that are not connected, send that same message on the third time. I'm like, okay, it's telling me something about the next best step.
Oh, is it a threes thing for you?
Yeah, for some, yeah, it's always been three.
Oh man, that's
Yeah,
beautiful.
yeah. So I'm curious about how you have applied self-directed leadership to your life. Um, well, I know some of it, so and I'm glad that you are someone who leads by example. Like you're not trying to take others through something that you don't endeavor to do yourself.
Yeah,
So,
most definitely.
so can you give us an example of how you have moved or an incident that captures the elements of what you take people through in self to help them increase or enhance
Yeah.
their self-directed leadership?
Yeah, it's like choose a period of life, It's like shedding skin and continuing to
Mhm.
level up. There were so many experiences from high school when when I was like 12 I mean, that was before, it was right at high school when my biological father left, and the type of decisions that needed to be made in terms of not, it's kind of like the opposite of being a victim, right? In some ways, and being able to then keep my mind positive, right? Take care of my body in terms of, working. Well, I was doing running track and playing football at the time, I believe. And then knowing that there's something greater that I'm in service to or wanting to be, right? So those things and that alignment there really helped me, like all of them, not one, because it could have been that I was working and my mind was there, but then not having a higher purpose, you kind of like, okay, you kind of flounder. But so then in college, um, similar, and I think I would just say the most recent thing as it relates to like just leadership. Um, I had a job because it's not always about and you'll appreciate this because it's not always about enhancing outcomes in that space, right?
Right, okay.
It's the self love that you have with that alignment that means that it's time to lead in another space, right? Or to lead yourself out of that space.
Okay.
As I know, because we talk, I know that you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So what I found in terms of when I did a recent job that I actually, transitioned from, because of the what the mind, taking care of your mind in terms of the inputs and really dig into that is in terms of like how are you thinking? And I use this framework referred to as positive intelligence, right? And it's keeping your mental muscle strong. And there's exercises that are not just like meditation where you got to meditate for an hour. I love meditation. I meditate every day, but it's more so like micro level ways of bringing your attention to the present, right? To
Mm.
build that muscle. So leveraging that along with this kind of like alignment with like, hey, why am I here? And if nothing came from the stars and I didn't have a naming ceremony or don't know about what am I saying I'm here for? Along with like taking care of my body, going to for me, I love the sauna and I do animal movement. So if anybody wants to learn about that, I'm all about it. But it's like
Okay.
functional. I used to be very buff and I'd be like, oh, I can lift all this weight, but I couldn't like, so it's like yoga mixed with like, it's kind of like break dancing capoeira type of but it's called animal movement. But having those that piece has led me to make over the past years like two really decisions that have been really difficult otherwise, one professionally, one personally. But the professional decision was amazing in that I can I'm what do you call it? I'm the, poster child for the fact that if you are in a space where you can walk away, then the decision is because wherever you go, there you are. But when you're in a space where you have to run away, there's still more to be learned.
Mhm.
And for me, that self-directed leadership has actually helped me in those spaces. I still have folks that communicate with me, and in terms of like leading the way and showing the light. But it's really helped me to be able to have a lot greater outcomes because you always are thinking about, hey, what are you doing? And once you've known mind, body, spirit, your actions, how you're showing up, it becomes something of which you can then not point fingers to everyone or the world or society, and you take accountability, because the ultimate accountability that I took is that, okay, whether I'm right or I'm wrong, this is still not feeling right. And that pain is information, as I like to say with my folks, or the disruption or dis-ease. What are you going to do? And that at that moment, do you have the resource or the knowledge to bring about the ease, or do you need to change environments? There's one thing that I would communicate that I didn't plan on talking about, and it's this other thing that I'm working on, but it's connected to this. It's like many of us, we grow up and we become independent. We're very dependent on our parents, and then we
Yes.
become independent, right?
Yes.
And I
Hmm.
got it, right? Some
Hmm.
people have to become independent early. I fell into that camp, but that can create a monster sometimes. You be so independent that you don't know how to depend on anyone, right? And people are like,
Right.
who would want to depend on anyone? Well, actually, for Carl, that's a part of the ultimate journey in life is how to become interdependent. It
Mhm.
means that we are so self-authored in such a way that we got us. We're taking accountability. But the next stage is how do we not have to have us all the time, right?
Mhm.
And there are environments, relationships, spaces and places. And when you're doing that work, mind, body, and spirit, and you've integrated that inner emperor, empress, or whatever it might be for you, whatever your kind of thing that you follow and see. Um, Sometimes it might be an environment, right? That you want to be able to depend on people for the sake of your own growth, not become codependent, right? Where you need them and a victimized, but I'm talking about self-directed, then interdependent. And there's a codependency when folks aren't self-directed sometimes. It is more so a blaming and a leaning into and wanting other people to do. So for me, in terms of some recent decisions, especially one on the job, it helped me recognize like, okay, I do want to be in an environment where I can be interdependent, right? Because what my go-to place was before is like, I got this. I'm just gonna do my own thing within my own unit. I'm gonna
Okay.
create a heaven here. So and I've done that and that's worked, but sometimes you want to level up and you want to be able to have a community and have that. And that right there takes a lot of vulnerability, right? Be like, I don't got it all. I have
Yeah.
this, but to
Yes.
do all of that, I don't have it all all under wraps with that.
Okay. Understood. Understood. I mean, I guess I am concerned about the person who needs it all like direct. So are you saying that I want to make sure I understood it
Yeah, yeah,
correctly?
yeah, please.
Like you were in a workspace and you started feeling some dissonance around your satisfaction, your right, okay. And then looked at yourself and said, okay, what's going on with Carl to determine what was the next best thing. And what you found was you had been operating in a way that had served you well for a long time, but it no longer was, which was being independent. And I guess a lot of, and like you said, you wanted to create your own heaven in your department. And maybe you did. I'm assuming you did. Knowing you did.
Yeah,
Or
it's a
your
mindset.
team
It's a
did,
mindset. Wherever you go,
right?
there you are. Yeah.
Yes. But then you said, I'm at a place where I want to be more interdependent
Mhm.
and made decisions to make your next move, which is what you're doing now.
Yeah, and just to go back into that for a moment, it's you and you stated it properly, and it's not a self-blaming thing, right? As much as it is a
Mhm.
self accountability for what one's locus of control is. And
Mhm.
then sometimes when you look at locus of control and you don't feel healthy, you don't feel good in a space, the only other variable to move or change would be the environment. Now, the reason why this is very critical, and I'm not saying this is for everyone to get to this. Sometimes it's like, hey, that environment, and everybody would know, and they look at that environment that's not a good thing. The reason why self directed leadership is important first is because wherever you go, there you are. I'm a believer that there are certain things to learn through the contrast and everything. And if those things are not learned, then they creep up again, right?
Right. Right.
So, and pain is information. So, like, that's why the peace becomes important. You can make the same decision. You're fired. I'm leaving this job. I'm out of peace. And the energy is different than, you're fired, I'm out of job. It's different because it's a certain level of like seeing the whole. And sometimes when we're in it in a way of blaming, we don't see the whole thing. We don't see what little piece we could have been not necessarily like causing it, but could
Mhm.
have recalibrated in terms of the learning from it.
Right.
So no, there's a lot of situations that are just outright not okay and dehumanizing, right? But the
Right.
learning from it, and so much that we don't even allow ourselves in those spaces again, is the minimum that we would say. So yeah, and then because of where I was in my journey, sometimes it's fine. I actually, in my personal and then professional life, I've gone like almost 5 to 10, like a decade at a certain time with like, hey, I got this. I'm going to work within my own space. But because of the type of leadership and the type of impact that I want to have on a wider range, knowing that you can't, farther together type of thing, you
Right.
can't have impact on that scale being an island, right? And
Right.
that's where the interdependence became a thing. That's like even me now with my own business. It's like my brother can do this, and I'm learning all these different things that just Carl was just trying to do it on his own was expensive. Because I have those muscles from age 12 working. I was like, I got it, I got it. The I got it, that's overrated.
Yes.
But the vulnerability that's required, to be able to reach out to other people and try to become. And interdependence is not for the faint of heart, right? I'm not saying everybody sign up for it. I'm just saying that that's one of those life journey things to truly integrate with the community of others. And our
Mhm.
society, as you know, very individualistic, and it really builds up a strong muscle in a taxonomy or categorization of like, yeah, this person's got it, yeah. But that stuff is very interesting, right? When it comes down to the outcomes, the health outcomes, and the not being able to lead into people and the mind and the overthinking and
Yeah.
the purpose. I'm a unity consciousness person, so it's like we're all connected, but yeah, it's a lot of layers there, but at minimum, when you look at a person, you can be able to make it very simple and just ask questions about how they feel, what they think they are called to do, what energy they have to do at the moment. It doesn't have to be the long conversation, like, because we're here in a podcast. It's just a very simple what they have the energy to do. Sometimes it's as simple as like, I'm just gonna do what's the healthiest thing you can do right now for your mind,
That's right.
body, and spirit
Yes.
that
Yes.
day.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes. Yes. Alignment is on my mind a lot lately.
All right, I could imagine. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
And I find that a number of people who are approaching their 50s are starting to talk about, yeah, they're starting to talk more about, you know, aligning with what they want to do and still trying to figure it out at that age. And
Mm,
that's the reality for anybody out there that's in their 20s. That's the reality that
that is the reality.
that people are still figuring it out in their 50s. And as they're approaching their 50s, this is we're in the 2020s and people are trying to figure it out. I think that as I was growing, I would have thought that I would have figured it out,
You you
right?
you, you thought you would have figured it out?
Yes, as I was growing up, right? Like I would have, and I was very goal oriented too. Like when I was in my 20s, this was going to happen, that was going to happen, and the other thing was going to happen. You know, it
So
was.
so
Go ahead.
tell me a little bit more about that part when you say figured it out, like what figuring it out would
Out,
potentially even look like, you know?
right? Like that well, what it looked like was, so I had set goals, right? Like to
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
what my career goal would be. I was going to have a family by a certain time. I was going to have, right, certain kinds of connections and impact by a certain time. And actually, I think I started coming to grips with the reality that we can't really determine those kinds of outcomes in our lives after some tr- traumatic experiences, right? Like, so
Mm,
thinking
mm.
about family, and after the first miscarriage, it was like, wait a minute, okay. And then when there was three, right?
Wow,
Like, oh,
wow,
like the reality is you may not have your own biological children, right? So having an experience like that, or being engaged to be married at, in the age range that I said I wanted to be, but to someone who was not marriage material, you know, uh,
look.
for
Mhm,
anybody,
mhm.
in my humble opinion. But that's where we can be misaligned, right? Where we're just thinking, oh, certain things happen ideally by a certain time. We cannot determine that timeline. And
Wow.
and what so it was unfortunate that it came from painful experiences that I had to learn that. Uh, you know, giving anybody the skill, or not giving the skill, but helping
Yeah, no.
develop the skill,
Mhm.
uh, so that they can make those determinations along the way that serve them well,
Right, right.
is powerful. It's powerful because we're lulled by what we see in society, in social media, on television, and newspapers, and what teachers and all
Bombarded.
different people
Mhm.
are telling us what life should be like, right? And we're making some determinations based on a fairy tale. You just really don't know. But I've seen I guess I'll say the harm, maybe it's harm, that can come from being so goal oriented that you don't accept that you really cannot control the outcome.
Mm.
You felt that? I felt it too. Look, I felt it.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't even know if that came from my own strength.
That
Just
look, you gotta take credit though. You're at least you're at least a conduit for it.
yes, it
Wow.
came through
Yeah.
me. So there's something to say for letting go.
And
Uh,
say that statement again that we just felt. Say it again.
oh, the statement. Oh Lord. Okay. About letting go of the outcome. I don't know if I can say it again. Uh,
Yeah, but
right.
I, lo-
Uh,
mhm. Go ahead. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah.
no, you go. You go.
No, just saying I love it so much because not to be too cheesy to tie it back to self-directed leadership, but when it becomes it's a lot easier than we think it is.
Mhm,
Most of the, say pain is information. Most of
mhm,
the suffering that we experience as leaders,
mhm,
as people in relationships, whatever it might be, comes from exactly what we just talked about.
mhm,
Now, it's difficult sometimes for folks because goals and dreams are what it's all about.
mhm,
How does one dream and have plans and goals, but yet still be okay when and that's because we exist in these extremes all the time. Like people like, oh, I'm fine. I don't or it's like, no, there's a sweet spot in there, you
yes.
know?
Yes.
It's that systems and flow. Like the sun comes up, goes down. There's a lot of variation between a day, but
Mhm.
there's like larger principles and things like that. So I do think that that's another muscle in itself, what
Mm.
you're describing that you have. And we would hope that, like you said, the people, or just people, regardless of age, that haven't experienced what you have experienced and what
Mhm.
we are in the frequency that we're on, knowing that the freedom is of suffering is in the surrender. And it doesn't have to be surrender like you got to go to church and
Yeah.
be believing. If you believe in that, then that's great. Then y'all know. But if you don't, and you're not a believer in such a thing, it is surrendering to the intelligence that, at minimum, we should know that you don't know everything. And if you
Right.
do, then that's
We
fine.
don't
Then
know
that's
everything.
fine. If you
Yes.
do, then I would like to learn from you. And this is no shade towards you. But at minimum, it's that. But at maximum, if a person believes in, something beyond, so it always checks out. It's like, oh, that's why I use this collective genius thing. It's like, or what can I learn? A reflection and a non of and I'm saying this on purpose because people think these things are for liberal religious people. You could be a
Mhm.
conservative,
Mhm.
very atheist person, and
Yes.
still it all applies what we're saying in terms of, because the human form is the human form. There's certain rigidity to certain ways of thinking that lead to um not as healthy of a space for your mind, body, and spirit. Because that's the thing about our biology. It
Mm.
starts to break down no matter what. I don't care if you're green,
Right.
or you was born in Nebraska and you're green, or if you're born in Philly and you're purple. But then there are there are certain things that we can really unite on as it relates to taking care of ourselves and others. So
Yes.
philosophically, if we subscribe to the wanting to make the world, like you said, heal the world or make it a better place, the healing, I forget exactly as you mentioned it. If you subscribe to that, then great. If you don't, then you're like Red Saber, part of the Star Wars movie. Then that's cool. We love y'all too, because we're not lowering our vibrations to, or changing it, but we just know that the work that educators and leaders are doing
Yeah.
trends towards what you're saying and what we're talking about with the self-directed. Um, and a mind body spirit alignment. It's like you've signed up for it already. Carl and Rochelle aren't telling you this.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just needed a moment to process, like, and remember what I was saying. I was like, yes, the to be goal oriented despite without considering how it aligns with your
Mm,
mind, body, and spirit, right?
mhm,
Does not serve us well.
mm.
Yes, because you leave yourself out, actually.
And how many people are doing that, Rochelle?
I know I was one of them,
Me
and I'm
too.
sure
And
there's with so many of us.
and that's where this. Oh my goodness, that's such a beautiful
Mm.
statement. Imagine leaving your spirit out, which is your purpose, your connection to yourself and others.
Mhm.
Imagine leaving your mind out. You're doing it, but it's stressful and you can't focus. And imagine leaving your body out, where you're doing it spite your physical form that's breaking down. So that leaving yourself out thing is huge.
Yes.
I love, that's really well stated. Yeah.
Yes. Well, thank you. But again, I had to learn the hard way. I hope there are so many people listening that
Yeah.
will really think about this and not have to learn the hard way, right? Like get some strategies that they can implement into their own lives to get aligned. And so I'm going to ask you for some practical strategies. What are some practical ways that leaders or others, can, like any person, because this is about personal development, that, when you develop personally, you develop professionally. Like it,
That's what it is. That's the synergy. Yeah. Yeah.
because you are who you are everywhere you go.
There you go.
And it just looks different
Mhm.
in different spaces. I learned that one the hard way too, about relationships. But anyway, uh, I'm I would love for our listeners to hear some practical strategies that you might recommend
Mhm.
for for them as leaders or just individuals, what they can implement that helps them align or, put in practice the principles of self-directed leadership.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity for this, and it's been great speaking with you. I get really excited about this is like the core of everything. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, I think the first thing is they say is not what you're looking at, is who you think is doing the looking, and that has so much like stuff underneath. But I would say at minimum, I view you and people as like perfect as is, and the process of self development is more of a polishing to uncover your amazingness versus helping yourself become better. So that self-help that I used to do, even at certain times where like I need to become better, can be so imprisoning. Because
Mm-hmm.
there's when you never get there. So I think that's the first thing, is just one's own frame.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and there are certain folks that frame is they view themselves in an image and creator of the universe or what have you. And there's some folks that just can just understand like, hey, how I was made is how I was made, or how I am is how I am. But that's really important. If you're something that's to be polished, um, or if you're already and something that's already perfected to be polished, and or if you're something that needs to be built up to be being something. So that framework is an entire thing in itself, and I have lots of there's work sometimes to do, like releasing of the heart, working on certain elements to get to that. But that's the first part. So practical strategy is the easiest strategy. Is change your mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Wayne Dyer says, one of his, I forget to say, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
Change, yes.
Totally, tip and totally. So
Yes.
that's one for the.
Mm-hmm.
So then when we get into the mind, I would say that if you haven't read Shazar Sharmin's book on no, yeah, I'll start here. A book on positive intelligence is amazing. It's like you have EQ, how much you
Mm-hmm.
can be aware of your emotions. Positive intelligence is they can work to your favor. A very practical strategy for anyone is just to sit back and whatever you've experienced, how can I make this something that can work in my favor? What did I learn from that? Talk to someone about it, journal, take deep breaths. These things are going to work with your mind and your body at the same time. For body, I was looking the other day on the internet. I was like, I'm so happy that somebody is talking about this, because I'm going to be talking about it soon. I read there's a book called Beautiful Practice, one of my favorite books, and they were talking about snacks, silent snacks. And I was like, what does that mean? That means being in silent for just 5 minutes versus having to meditate for 3 hours. But there are these things, this concept that I was thinking I was going to develop, but someone else did, called exercise snacks. Taking care of your body is so important, whether it's walking, or 2 minutes of like literally like lifting your arms up and down. We're very sedentary because your body, you take care of it, it will take care of you. So that's practical. Anybody listening to this can stand up and sit down 10 times, if they typically do it. And if you're a person that can't, whatever that physical movement that you can do that doesn't require lots of pain to do, it's like do that. It's like when you go to the
Yeah.
doctor, I can't do this, do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Um,
Ooh,
and then spirit,
I don't want.
no, I'm sorry, go ahead. I'm
I
sorry.
didn't want to interrupt your flow, but I was just like, oh, can I just jump in on that
Yes,
exercise?
please, please, please.
Okay, so I have one of those, things.
Yes.
This is not a commercial. That's what I
Right.
have.
No sponsors.
And,
Hey,
and,
Fitbit, y'all can sponsor her. No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
and the main reason, right, is to count my steps. It does more things, but I wanted to track my steps each day. And I started during the pandemic, like in 2020. Well, I have a funny story, but uh, once I got my mind right and came up with a realistic number of steps per day, I decided I was going to make sure I had 5,000 steps per day, not realizing that when we were shut down, right, and we were supposed to stay in our homes for the most part, that I literally walked less than 1,000, like around 1,000 steps a day, just sitting at the computer constantly, almost all day, except to go to the bathroom and eat. So I do the 5,000 steps. I started with the 5,000 steps. I literally, the other day, I noticed that I had 6,000 steps and I hadn't left the house.
Wow.
It's
And
so,
and and you wouldn't
Mhm.
think that you were exercising and moving, but you had.
Right,
You
exactly.
actually accomplished that.
Right. I
Yeah.
was like, and, in that original time period where I was doing the 5,000 steps per day, this was going to be, I did it. I gave myself grace. I said 5 out of 7 days.
Right, right.
And I got to that point, right? And then superseded it. So like I'm at a stage now where it's like 7,500 steps because, the pandemic was 4 years ago, like, 2020. So the end of 2020. So it was mostly 21 to now. So I have that new level because 5,000 is almost, it literally, I don't know, I just move more unconsciously now. And I need that. And many of us need that to keep our glucose levels consistent. Yes.
That movement.
They know who I'm talking to. And so we all need it. There's so many things so many little things we all could do to prevent one of the more pervasive diseases out there for like, I don't know, it's like 1 in 2 or 1 in 3 people have diabetes. There's a lot of people who are diabetic and just slight things in our nutrition and exercise that allow us to prevent it. So I am one of those people. I had two of both of my paternal grandparents were diabetic. And so we always were checking, my A1C on my annual visits. I was in that
Okay.
pre-diabetic range. And, then when I just tipped over to diabetic, I was like, wait a minute. Okay, wait a minute. But I did not want to take medication because I understood that that could actually make me sicker, right? Like the medication could cause some other problem. And I rooted that out. You hear me? I rooted that
Wow.
out. And I
That's what I'm talking about.
yes. And, it took a diabetic nurse to educate me. But when I found out that there were so many things that throw our glucose off, like so many things, stress. And, even going from meeting to meeting to meeting, you're not allowing your body to activate the good, the good, what is it? The hormone. Is it hormone?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes. That
The-
is it hormone? It's not hormones. Wait a minute.
when you're referring to which part you're saying?
Like when, so is it cortisol that is activated like when there's a stress event? And so a stress
Hmm.
event could be just starting a meeting, right? Like it's
Hmm.
not, it doesn't have to be something traumatic. But there's another good, stress. I guess it's a hormone. I don't know why I keep
Yeah, it is a hormone.
right. So there's another one that's released when the stress event is over. Well,
Well, the oxy. Hmm. Hmm.
going from meeting to meeting to meeting, you're not allowing the stress hormone for when you're relaxed or when the stress event to be over,
Hmm. Hmm.
not getting released. And that can throw off your glucose levels.
Yeah, and I wanted you to work through that because I totally agree, and it's the oxytocin. So and not to, but this is super duper important. So I'm so
Yeah.
happy that you're talking about this. This is like my happy space. So like the key hormone in this kind of recovery is like, like the that hormone where you feel good, right? And as
Hmm.
a response to like a social interaction and the counter effect, that cortisol that you had mentioned.
Yes.
And what's interesting about that is that the the endorphins, oxytocin, releases a response to like when you, but then you have those natural things that are like painkillers,
Mm.
right? The endorphins, and it released in response to like that's recovery. That's the part that you were referring to. It's like, all right, you stress, now I'm recovering.
Right.
Okay, now the pain is over.
Right.
And I just know that like there, so what's it? Is it as oxytocin, and not to get all technical, but I think it's important. Oxytocin, endorphins, serotonin, and dopamine. And we don't even talk about all of these things, right? Because
Right.
what we really want to do is be in a state of rest and digest more so than we are in fight or flight. And a lot of the, like what you just described, that's a fight or flight thing. Then we
Yes.
get out of the fight or flight, what's it, your parasympathetic nervous system is
Mhm.
the area in which you like, hey, all right, this stress event's over. You know what I'm
Yes.
saying? I have these good chemicals, just call them good chemicals that are releasing.
Hmm.
And becoming a master of that, like what you just described, I think everybody in 2024, 2025, or what have you,
Hmm.
should be interested in how they can feel good. Rochelle, some people don't know how to feel good, you
Mm.
know?
Yeah.
Like, think about it. Think about how awesome it would be like, hey, I want to feel good. I want to go feel good. Not in ways that are kind of like over self-medicating with like certain kind of things that are like not, always positive, but like, what is it? But yeah, I just love, you know, I love the way that our bodies are wired. It's very scientific. And it works on everybody, like we were saying, even if you're green. So I really
Yes.
appreciate you bringing that up.
Yeah.
Even down there's this thing, they call it the 1 foot journey between the head and the heart. It used to be that you thought, hey, I am smart and I have this, brain. But now we know your first brain, and y'all can look this up because some people can say your gut is your first brain, and what
Mm.
you're actually putting into your body is going to impact the way you think. I
Yes.
know because I fast when the seasons change. And when I fast, and I know we were on these simple strategies, and I just stop
That's
here.
okay.
When I
That's okay.
fast, it helps me know what moods are promoting certain types of cravings. And I'm like, oh goodness, okay, that's why. But there's a lot here as it relates to the body and how being more in tune with it, to your point, can really help because I guarantee you this, regardless of what you believe in, a
Hmm.
person who feels better, it's like Deion Sanders say, look good, feel good, play good, right? The looking good may not always be as important, but that's the thing too. That's a whole entire thing around that. But if you feel better and you're connected to your body, whatever you talk about 10xing productivity. How
Yeah.
about 10xing your own ability? So I call it 10xing your ability by making sure your body and your mind, and then with the spirit part, which I'll end with,
Mhm.
you said leaving yourself behind. I forget what you said. I forget exactly what you had mentioned earlier. Everyone has something that they're called to do. And if you don't have it, you can look at what you've been interested in the past. Like, what do you like to do? What brings you joy? Not your friends. And sometimes people are like, hey, I'm 50 something years old and I've always been just doing this for them. And then it may be that time. And if you can't find that, whatever space you're in, finding joy in doing it, right? And finding a purpose in that. So that's the other strategy. Two of these were just thinking. The other one, you can sit together like this with your fingers and rub these when you want to distract yourself. You can take a deep breath. You can do box breathing. All of these are like very low. You don't need to go spend any money on anyone to actually have a little bit more access to your own self direction because you're directing yourself back to yourself in the present. So hopefully that's helpful. There's tons more, obviously, Rochelle, but we gotta stop.
Yes. 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 So I hear you saying, yeah, like really take some time, I guess going backwards, right? Like take time to like when you were I guess motioning with your
Yeah, you're
thumb
feeling the
and
ribs of
your
your. Hmm.
yes. So it's the thumb and index finger.
Yeah, do you feel the sensation? Like feel what it feels like to touch. And now, Rochelle, you're focusing on this.
Right.
So your mind can't focus on other things right now.
Other thing. Oh,
It's
that's
bringing your
go ahead. It's bringing what?
no, you're bringing your attention away from the stressors and all those things to
Yes.
this very, not only the present moment, but a very specific thing. And that's what breathing does.
Thing.
Focus on
Yes.
your breathing. And
Yes.
that's what meditation is to do, but you don't have to do it for 30 minutes. It could just be 10 seconds right here.
That's right. And I love that. You just gave me something new to add because sometimes the deep breathing helps center me. It helps center me, right? Like, and I can kind of focus. It doesn't actually take me, it doesn't keep me there unless I keep doing it. But then after a
Yeah, it can
while,
be a little bit of a chore
now you're
sometimes. Yeah.
bringing, yeah, you're bringing too much air. Might get a little too relaxed. Um, but focus. doing something that helps you focus in on something
That's
else
it. That's it.
helps. Wait, here's where I have had a challenge for many years. So you may be the answer to a prayer I've had, right?
Oh, yes, indeed. Oh, okay.
And the prayer was to release from overthinking.
Mm,
Yes. So I can see, yes, in that moment, just put those two fingers together in those moments, right?
that's
Like,
it.
because my brain, I don't know if, I've never been formally diagnosed with anything like ADHD or ADD or whatever, but sometimes from what I know of symptoms, I wonder, right? Because I literally get just, my mind just goes, and this is six
Yeah.
o'clock in the morning,
It's
you
because
know?
you have a superpower. It's because you have a superpower in order to think about a wide range of things at once. So then in
Yeah.
that environment where you're to focus on that one thing, it's like
Hmm.
my brain is like your brain is like, I'm stronger than just this. I want to go. Let me run around the track. You trying to have me stand beside the track? And you could
Exactly.
when you're when you're doing this and you're bringing your attention. I've been at business a ton. Like anyone who sees this is gonna be like, oh, that's why Carl's calm and those. I've been at stressful moments, and you don't know. I'm under the table doing this right now while we're talking. I'm
Wow.
doing this.
Hmm.
I
Mm.
can count. I can count the
Yes.
whole to 60. One, two, three, four, five. Focusing in on those numbers to bring me back to the present. Um,
Mhm.
because your brain is how it is, and those other chemicals, that cortisol, your blood vessels constrict. You don't have as much
Mhm.
oxygen to your brain. The thinking isn't as clear. So you
Yes.
got to work twice the quadruple to whatever time is hard. So yeah,
Yes.
100%. Yeah.
Wonderful. Wow. That is a perfect note to transition as we end, even though I could talk to you forever, as always. Is there any final advice you'd like to share with our audience or even other resources? Actually, you just really gave us a ton.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I would just want to give thanks to you for the opportunity to, you know, anytime I can try, well, even just to talk to you, right? Just
Mhm.
and to share with other folks.
Yes.
Um, I would just invite everybody to love yourself enough to love more, right? And because it starts with yourself, mind, body, and spirit. And no advice, but just more of questions. How do you show up for yourself and others in a way that's most humanizing and can add to the most alignment for you and them? How are you? And that's the question. There's tons of stuff to read, and you can listen to some of my stuff or whatever. But the questions, a lot of it's within you. You need facilitation into getting to some of those questions.
Yeah.
Lots of resources out there. I'm one of them.
Yeah.
Rochelle's one of them. But it really comes down to that. I'm feel very capable, competent, and excited about. You bring a challenge. I have a way of like leveraging that to become the best thing. So that's what I'm really excited about. So that's the last thing I'll just mention is that there are no problems. There are only opportunities for deeper and greater. So yeah. So
Yes.
thank you.
Yes, you are in the right place. I'm talking to our listeners right now that they are in the right place if they want to listen to people who do believe that you have everything in you that you need. Yes, Dr. Moore, Carl, you are one of many guests that we have brought on here, but that's been something that has been important to me about this podcast, that we bring people who
Mm,
understand that people have in them everything that
yes.
they need. Yes. And
Yes.
we're hoping to elevate our ability as interdependent humans
Mm,
to
mm.
increase our not increase our ability, but really to actualize it, right?
To
Like to actually
actualize it.
do
Yes,
what we
indeed. Yes,
know
indeed.
that we are capable of doing. Yes. Like help
Yes.
other people do what they're capable of doing. And you talked about being, feeling joy, right? Like getting back to that place, that being present, experiencing joy. Man, when we experience joy, I know it is true for me. When I experience joy, I, people around me are experiencing.
Right. It's literally an energy. You can measure these
Yes,
things now.
yes.
Yeah.
So I want to thank you for being so generous with your expertise, with your time, as always. So please tell our listeners how they can find you after this before we go.
Oh, wonderful. So I don't do tons of social media, but I have, Instagram, Carl, CarlSmoore. So it's at, and it's the same thing on Twitter. And then when it comes to the email, my email's carlsmoore.phd@gmail.com. And then website is Universal Love Unlimited. So all one word, .com. And there is much to come in terms of courses and you know self-guided, so that because people are busy, they're like they don't always have time for meetings. So
Yes.
people have been requesting that. So yeah, you can find me in those spaces and places.
Yes.
Oh, and the Universal Love, the podcast, duh, Carl. Universal Love Movement podcast, Spotify, and any kind of podcasting source. You can, if you want to listen into some of the series that I've had so far.
Excellent. And I want to be clear that you spell universal
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I have to.
Y-O-U.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's YOU because it's about the you, your own universe, your inner space. So YOU, and and then in place of the you, universal love, and then love is spelled LUV because we're
Yeah.
all living universal vibrations. Thanks. I haven't been,
That's
talking
okay.
about this in quite a while. So thanks for giving me.
No
They would have
problem.
they would have universal spelled the U and then love LOV. It's like I can't find them.
Right, exactly. And it might be somebody else out there with that spelling. So I
I'll
want to
send you the
just,
links. Mhm.
yes, and we will have the links in the show notes. I want to just be clear that it's Youniversal, Universal Love, LUV. Yes.
That is correct.
And you said unlimited is the
Yeah, Unlimited is my company, but then the podcast right there
right.
is Universal Love Movement. So when you're looking for the podcast,
Mm-hmm.
Universal Love Movement, when it comes to like just the website,
Yes.
Universal Love Unlimited.
Unlimited, the full word unlimited spelled out.
Hmm.
Yes, wonderful. Because unlike Perceptions Unlimited,
Yeah, I
right?
like it.
Yes, Perceptions Unlimited is, we abbreviate the unlimited part. So again, thank you, thank you, thank you. And I want to say thank you to everyone who stopped by. Please leave a comment, subscribe, share this episode. Thank you again for listening to Rooted to Thrive.